So we're here this week, and you had couples last week, and I guess then you'll have more. But we've got you guys all to ourselves this week. I mean, your schedule must be pretty busy, because you're coordinating everything. You're doing intakes, I guess, with like new couples, and then you're coordinating births and couples that are already going out. So it's probably pretty intensive.
Usually we have maximum 2 couples a week to make the first visits. All this, to sign the contract. But when in these weeks we plan to have some birth, usually we try to have 1 couple a week, because there will be other activities. We have people that are doing the coordinating the birth, so it's not necessary that I have to be there, or I can do another stuff. But anyway, we try not to overload, because when you overload and try to grab how many couples you can per week, you lose quality. You just lose some details, attention to a couple, and actually we are not after that. So we are pretty fine with the number that we have. Usually if it's a maximum, so I think it's about 6 couples. It's a lot per month. So 6 new couples arriving. This is good for us.
Yeah, so I was telling her that we've gone through the entire process of talking to a lot of different agencies, a lot of different clinics, calling them. I mean, I think it's just something that we would want to do as part of due diligence, making sure that we're doing, making the right decisions, and just telling her that there are some that have 70 births or 60 births a month. It's just like, geez, that's a lot, and how you can give the right attention to a couple when you're doing that much, I think it's pretty difficult. It's one of the reasons why we don't want to go that route. It's just too much.
Right, and imagine, so Natalia is the medical coordinator, and she also has assistant to coordinate all the mothers, because every day you have to go with some surrogate for some checkups. And actually many agencies, they just leave them to go themselves to a doctor, for example, she needs to go to check the eyes, right? And the doctor will tell her something to write down and maybe tell her some recommendations, and she, as a pregnant woman, can just forget. She's under hormones, and she will just tell, she's told me something but I don't remember, and on this point the problems become to arise, because if she doesn't do what she's had to do, and there's sometimes not possible to call back the doctor and to ask, what did you say so it's very difficult. So every time, with every visit, our surrogate, she goes with a coordinator. So the coordinator is writing down like that,
Every visit.
Yes, writing down what the doctor said, what medication. She checks if the surrogate bought the necessary medication, what dosage she's taking. Everything is under really serious control. And when you have 70 surrogates, for example, per month, or couples per month, imagine how many people you need to control the same number of surrogates, 70 employers to control. Maybe one employer can control 2, 3, but not more, And we currently have right now, pregnant about 5, I think, surrogates, so it's okay for us. And one give birth, one get pregnant again, so usually it's like that number. Okay. And and we don't have every month 6 couples. Sometimes we have 2, 3, 4 per month. Some months are only 1. This is like a low season. It's about, I don't know, December, before the new year, after the new year. So it's more for us working on articles, advertising, videos. So it's more like preparing for the next season. Sure. And a lot of births take place in winter. So because we make embryo transfers all the time, but usually also for embryo transfers there is some kind of season, it's autumn embryo transfers, spring, summer, so usually it's winter or after the new year, a lot of births. We will be busy with births after the new year more than for first visits. And what made you decide to come especially to us? Like, because you said you talked to different agencies and look different websites.
That's a good question. Well, on my end, like Shane did most of the research, looked at most of the different agencies, and I came up with kind of a list. And on my end, it was more the emotional side and asking some of the different forums out there. Well, do you have experience with this one? What's your experience with that one agency? That sort of thing. And some agencies that kind of helped us narrow down the list quite a bit, because some agencies were so big that you were almost more of a number, and then there were others who kind of made the shorter list because they were more personable, and they really looked after their clients. So, and then I know you had something else to go along with that.
So probably one of the things that initially really drew me to your agency center. What's the right term to use?
Usually we would like to call it center because I think that agency has some kind of small negative thing, like that agent just taking money and doing nothing, you know, and like why I should go with an agency if I can go directly. Agency just taking money, just telling me where to go, like something like that. But center is more like coordination center, more like a point from where you coordinate all the things. Like that's why we call it. But we're okay if somebody will call it an agency. It's okay.
Use your terminology. So I'm trying to call it center. Yeah, so when we initially talked to you, one of the things that was really impressive is, we asked at the end, why you were doing this, and the answer that you gave was really nice. That you kind of said something to the effect of you kind of felt that the babies were choosing you to come here, and
really, I said that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so it was just a really kind of like a good answer. It's like, wow, that's a really nice answer, because for us, it's the decision to do this is something that's challenging. We're pretty religious. We have a pretty religious background, and so there's a lot of potential ethical pitfalls. I think there's a lot of ways that doing something like this can be misused. But I think there's a lot of good that can come from it, and so I think it's not something that you enter into just on a whim. It's not something that you do just because. I think it's something that takes a lot of thought, a lot of dedication, a lot of reflection as to what the right avenue to go down. And your answer, nobody else is kind of given a similar answer than that, and so that was really pretty good.
I remember that I answered like that because even Evgeny will tell you that when a couple is coming, there is always a very interesting match with a surrogate mother. You can always see some things that connect that couple for some reason, and it's obvious that it's not just like that. It's not a coincidence, and I think we kind of believe that we are some kind of ambassadors for the babies, that they say, hey, we want to go down there to that to that parents, and we say, okay, we organize, they come here, so something like that,
I've said this before, but for me, in discovering surrogacy, it really was like an answer to prayers, because I had come to a point where I could no longer bear children, but we had always wanted a large family, and just stumbling across that I had a friend who was a surrogate at the time. Just it really was the answer that I needed. So
telling her this morning that this is kind of kind of the culmination of 5 years of a lot of pain. You know, we have 3 wonderful kids, and they're awesome, they're great. And you know, we were thinking about having more, and cancer came along and just completely upended our world. Something that we never thought about, never contemplated. Had no real conception that cancer could come at such a young age.
Yes.
And so, you know, the hardest part for me was I came so close to losing my wife.
Yeah.
And I do mean that. You know, it is a miracle that she's here with me. You know, the percentage for her cancer was 18% 5-year survival rate.
Wow.
I mean, it was, you know, there were so many times where she could have died. And so to fight through that battle, to struggle, to go through all the sufferings, you know, she suffered in different ways than I suffered, and we both had kind of our own battles to fight along that way, and to fight them together. And then after, you know, just kind of going through each step, and when it got to the point where where it was like, okay, we stopped going from the day to day, because for a period of time, you know, during that, it was just, you know, survival. You know, what can I survive today? And then, you know, can I survive tomorrow? Can I survive the next day? And so then once we got to the point of not in survival, we started thinking about the longer ramifications of what this would mean. And you know, there's no possibility of having any more kids. You know, cancer came so fast that
And it was already very advanced when it was diagnosed too. So
it was already stage 4. And,
Wow, it's a miracle that you survived. This is unreal.
and so it was so fast, so quick. Like when she went in for the initial operation, I thought, well, you know, maybe they might be able to save some eggs. That was actually
save something. That was kind of a hope of mine. Is I didn't know. You never really know exactly how bad a cancer is until they actually do the surgery. And one of my hopes, the hope that I kind of clung to in going into the initial surgery, would be that I would be able to keep my uterus, keep one ovary, and then we'd still be able to have children on the other end. But it was too far advanced. I had to take everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was a hope of mine too. Is that, you know, they'd be able to save some of the eggs, freeze them, and then, you know, it was one of those weird things. You know, my wife's life is on the line, and I'm like, okay, you know, pray to God she's saved, and, you know, pray to God that, you know, that they'll be able to save, you know, some of the eggs, because we knew it was ovarian, and it was, you know, total devastation as far as the cancer. And so this is something that kind of always had in the back of my head. Is like, well, you know, maybe one day, because you know, we have to get through 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then, you know, statistically speaking, at 5 years, it's like it never happened. It's, you know, they use the term cured. You know, and at 5 years, it's like, you know, cured. And so this is, you know, basically right now is 5 years from remission. And so it's 5 years, and, you know, like I said, you know, okay, so what's out there.
We no longer really have to think about that cancer coming back.
Very good. So you don't have any checkups anymore? You're fine?
Well, I'm expected to have a checkup every year for the rest of my life. But other than that...
Actually, even those that did not have cancer have to check. Just make a regular checkup during 1 year.
Right, but mine is specifically to do the blood work for the cancer every year for the remainder of my life.
So this is kind of the, you know, but after she went into remission, just telling her this after we went on the way here, after she went into remission. We took a cruise, one of our victory cruises, you know, like, all right, you know, she made it. And so this is kind of I guess a victory lap of 5 years, and, you know, all right.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm a little emotional, but
It's absolutely fine. I can imagine what you. I can't imagine what you went through, and
it's kind of a 5 year of like, hey, you know, we're done with that. We're gonna live our lives.
no only
No longer have
all
to
good
even think
sides.
about keeping our lives in kind of a holding pattern anymore. So
Only good news from now.
hopefully.
It's a good one.
It does look good.
So you know, and that was kind of when this, you know, when we were starting to come up with the 5 year, you know, there's like, okay, well, this is actually a possibility to think about, like, I really being able to do this. Because before it's just kind of a pipe dream. It's like, well, yeah, you know, maybe we'll do that, but it's sometime
Someday.
Yeah.
Someday.
You know, many couples. When I email some couple, like we're emailing, yes, I can tell right away that they're just on a very early stage to just interested in surrogacy, but sometimes they go back to me in 1 year. So it's like a really long process for some couples to just. They can actually sometimes even buy a ticket and not come because they think they're ready, but at some point they think no, like I cannot do that. So I want to say that this is like a really serious decision to do, like a step to go into surrogacy. And some couples, they have a fear that something will go wrong, you know, and there's another person carrying your baby. So it's kind of a lot of stress involved there, and a lot of scare. Like they're scared to trust agency or go to other country, and sometimes it's expensive. But there are a lot of things that lead to this decision. So.
Well, it's something that's definitely not taken lightly. You know, for us, it's kind of almost a now or never type deal. You know, so I'll be 40 here in a couple of months, or next month. She'll be 38 in December. And, you know, man, you just do the math, and it's like, well, you know, do I really want to be, you know, 60 plus raising a kid? Now, some people that may be fine, and I understand, but for us, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, by the time I'm 60, you know, early 60s, like, I want all my kids out of the house. Right? They're gone. They're living their own lives. You know, we've done our job. We've raised them. All right, they can go live their lives, and we'll, you know, do the whole, you know, grandparent thing. So it's kind of a now or never type deal where it's like, all right, you know, if we're gonna do this, like, we need to do this soon, because I'm not getting any younger, you know.
And raising babies, that is a young person's game. So
Yeah, really. You have to have a lot of energy for that, right?
yes, exactly. I'm still thinking about chasing toddlers right now. So
how will you tell to your children?
Yeah.
How you will describe to your children?
you know, and I think I'm not sure that we've fully decided how we're going to tell them. If we're just going to kind of pass it off as kind of an adoption at first, or if we're going to give them more details. But I think that's something that we're still kind of debating about.
You know, no.
We've talked with our kids in kind of broad terms. I just have kind of discussions. You know, my son was so when she had cancer, my son was he was 6, so he was old enough to kind of understand that something's really wrong, but not really fully understand everything. And so it's something that has definitely affected him. And one of the things, like just last week. So I take them on, you know, daddy-daughter, son dates and whatnot. And, I generally ask them, hey, how are things going in the family? What do you like about our family? What can we do better as a family? What, just kind
What
of.
do you wish was different?
What do you wish was different? Just kind of, a little bit of private time to kind of understand, their thinking. Sometimes they come up with wild things like, no, that's not going to happen. But he said, pretty much unscripted. He's like, Dad, he's like, the one thing that I wish is that I had a younger brother.
Really?
Wow. My kids definitely wish that they had siblings. There's no doubt.
Yeah, amazing family. Like you want to grow. Like you want more children, and your children want more children.
Well, Shane grew up with 3 siblings, and I have 5 siblings. So, only 3 children seems very small to us because we both grew up with quite a bit more.
If all I ever had was 3, I'd be happy with that. Absolutely. God gave us 3. If that's the way it's meant to be, I will take that. Absolutely, and I'll be very, very grateful for it. However, if there is a way, and if there's an opportunity to do something legally, ethically, morally, to be able to have additional children, then yes, I'd like to take that opportunity.
Of course.
And of course, a lot of people would say, well, if that's what you're looking for, why not just adopt? Well, there's a lot of pitfalls that come with adoption too. And it's like you never really know what it is that you're getting into, like, and how long you would have to wait for that adoption to come through. Because, if you have if you discriminate in any sort of way, then it of course takes longer. So.
And there are adoption agencies that are very discriminatory on the parent side too.
Plus, too, like some of the countries that are easier to adopt from, because we already have 3 children. We really want the children that would come to us to look like the rest of our kids. So it's not automatically, oh, you're adopted.
Yeah, of course you have to. First of all, you have to have some connection to the child. Yes.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's like, well, it's not just for us, but nobody wants their child to always feel like they stick out. And so a lot of the countries that are easier to adopt from, really, we would those children in our family would have that kind of disadvantage.
Why you should ask somebody to carry a baby for you if you can go and adopt? And this sounds like you are guilty that you force somebody to carry a child for you when you can go and adopt. But I always ask them, if you have a choice to have your genetic child and to go and adopt, how you would personally choose? If you have a possibility to have your genetic child, because you have some health issues and you cannot carry or so, and nobody will have any harm from that.
Right.
Any harm.
And the other thing too is we've had a Skype call with our surrogate, and our main concern was, well, how's your health? How do you feel about this? And talking with her, and she really more volunteered rather than us saying, oh, you should do this, because she gave birth. Let's see, it's September now.
April.
Only about 5 months ago, and so that was something that initially was a concern for us, simply because it's so soon. But she really does want to do this. So.
Yeah. Oh, she actually will. The embryo transfer will take place later anyway, so it will be.
Yeah.
And the doctor confirmed as well that she's in a perfect health after birth, and it will be half a year, and even more, 8 months after the birth. It's absolutely normal.
Before we can offer you any candidate, we always only after doctor confirms it's surrogate mother okay with her health, we can move forward. Only after that. So it was not a long time ago. The delivery, but anyway, she has a dream and she needs money to do that.
Exactly. She told us that she's trying to get enough money to buy an apartment for her family.
And she's a really good person who knows how difficult it can be to people who want to have a child, and she wants to help. She's really one of those people who wants to help, you know?
Yeah, so going back a little bit to the adoption, one of the other reasons why, in the adoption, the cost also is, you can spend a similar amount in the United States for adoption.
Right.
So, you have the emotional part of, and the lengthy time of, it might take 2+ years plus the cost, which is a challenge. As far as the surrogate goes, we do recognize. It is a big. I like the term. It's a big ask. It is a big thing for some. For another woman to carry a child. She's been pregnant 3 times. We understand that. Yes, pregnancy can come with a lot of risk.
And it is a sacrifice. A lot of people don't really think of it that way, but for a year. You basically give up your body to this other person.
Yeah.
And you can't take hardly any medications. You can't like if you get a cold or something like that, you have to suffer through it. You can't take a lot of those. You can't even take aspirin. So when you have a headache, so it is a big deal. It's a big sacrifice to go through that and to ask someone else to do that for you. Particularly someone that you don't even know, it is a big thing.
Actually, this is a very important question that I always want to raise in the videos and anywhere in articles and in community, in surrogacy community. Why the altruistic surrogacy is considered normal and the commercial is not normal? Because only reasonable expenses can be covered, but not taking into consideration the as you say, how it's called properly, the compensation for what you put into that pregnancy when you're surrogate. You give your time, you give your efforts. You go into some kind of not stress, but there is some kind of thing that you cannot do. You cannot go there. You cannot travel. You go into some stage where you are fully responsible for that pregnancy. You understand that it's a baby for someone else, and why can be only covered your medical expenses, clothes. Why only that? Why not be thankful to that person that she can buy for her something that she needs and will be a normal change,
Yeah. So go back just quickly to one of your previous questions. You said why your agency. Well, one of the things, so I told you the initial conversation we had was all right, these guys they're on my top. They're on the top. But being able to actually talk with a surrogate and have that surrogate prior to us coming here, that was really a really nice thing to do, because none of the other agencies, you can suggest none of the other agencies have clinics or centers that even have any type of it's set up of here's some surrogates who might be there, and so being able to talk with the potential surrogate prior to even coming was really nice. It gives a lot of assurances that what we're doing is a good thing to do. Now, when we talk about financial compensation, I think maybe some people think, the problem with commercial surrogacy is if you pay someone too much money, that it's kind of a form of exploitation. Too many people want to do this because of the form of exploitation. But you know what? We all have a free choice, and someone could say, "Here, Shane, I'll pay you $1 million if you take these drugs." Am I going to do it? It wouldn't matter the money that they paid me. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, there comes a point where money isn't material to what you do, to your actions. And so at some point, it's like, there should be a compensation.
The one is only like a materialization of the energy that you can give back.
Right.
Like recover for the energy.
But at some point, if people think it's not the right thing to do, they're not going to do it regardless of the amount of money you give them.
Yeah.
It's just, you're not going to do it. And
course.
I'd rather rely upon people who have the morals that says, look, I don't agree with this. Well, that's fine. So I'm not going to do it, regardless of the amount of money that someone pays me.
Well, the other thing too is even in commercial surrogacy, for a surrogate to do what she does, there is a level of altruism that goes along with it anyway, regardless of whether or not she's monetarily compensated in some way, because she doesn't know these people. One of the biggest questions for her is automatically going to be, well, are they ever even going to come and pick up the baby?
Right. This is you're the first that actually understand that, because usually couples ask, will the surrogate give the baby? And the surrogate always asks, when they are coming, are they coming? Will they pick up the baby? Do they need the baby?
Well, you go back to the trust. I mean, it's a big thing on our end, but it's also a big thing on your end too. I mean, at what point, at some point during the contract, even though you have the contract, and yes, it's legal and whatnot, but okay, I mean, they can just say, well, here we are at month 7, and sorry, I'm not right, and then what do you guys do? And so part of it, I hope, is like on your end that you're also, looking at us and evaluating us.
Of course we do.
Hey, are these people actually going to fulfill what they say they're going to do? And on the same end, we're evaluating you guys. Like, are you guys going to actually do what you say you're going to do? Because if you have couples who don't fulfill their obligation, well, that's a travesty. I mean, that's horrific and just So what do you do? And I would hope that on a moral, ethical aspect, if you have couples that don't fulfill the contract, that you're thinking to yourself, boy, maybe we should have done a better job investigating, the couples, because they didn't fulfill what they said they were going to do, and now we have this new baby here. What happens?
I can tell you that we don't have such cases in Perfect Surrogacy. We don't have such cases that the parents never showed up, or divorced during the pregnancy.
Yeah, why we came to Ukraine. Another reason why we came to Ukraine, because I looked at the laws of Ukraine. I really like the laws that you guys have.
It's actually a good one, but
It is.
it's an order from a health ministry, and then in some civil law, also like a family law, there is like small points about the surrogacy and the parents. But soon we will have a big law, like a special law for reproductive medicine, and now there is a working group that is working on this big law. It will take, I think, a few years, because it's a big part of work. Then it has to pass to the government, go through all committees. There is like a lot of committees that have to go through, approve, change, and we had some changes like project laws last year, but they were all declined in this spring. It was not professional changes. Like, it was obvious that they will not pass, but they made such a sensation that surrogacy will be closed in Ukraine. Something. It even didn't say that it will close. It was just that the parents could not enter by visa. How you can actually check that? Parents enter and you don't know. They're just traveling like tourists. So it was absolutely unclear.
Well, and a wise man once told me that.
Your father was a wise man.
He was a wise man too. But we're talking about Roseman. So Roseman said once that the best way to love your neighbor is by raising your kids right.
because the effect that your kids have on other people is going to be just, I mean, just multiplicity.
Yeah.
And the best thing that I can do in my life to be able to help society out is to raise good children, to raise strong men and women, to be able to go out in society, be productive, be kind, generous, all those things.
Right.
And so, why do we want it? Because I think we're good at it. You know, just...
And then, of course, his father is a very wise man, and his father told him that. So Dad said that his one regret was not having more children. Well, here we have an opportunity to have more children, and I feel like if we didn't take it, we would also have that regret.
Yeah.
So
I see.
Yeah, so we really like the laws of Ukraine and other setup.
And what would you say as United States citizens? This is like a really interesting question. And I think will be interesting question for our future parents from United States. So when you're in United States, you feel like Ukraine and the Europe is so far, like it's over the ocean, and probably something that is after Poland is like ruins there, you know. For some people that are not traveling too much, and maybe, you know, like because they're like businessmen, they're traveling everywhere in the eastern part. But because we had couples even from Europe coming to Ukraine and like driving from airport with such eyes and like surprised, and I have like to ask why you're surprised, and they say you have multi-store buildings here. I said, yes, and what? Like, we thought you're like, you know, like one floor buildings, very poor country. I said, why are you going into such country? Like, you are going somewhere and you think you're going to poor country? It's like totally, you know, there are no countries like that anymore. It's not like that, and they're so surprised, especially when they are in Arcadia city in Odessa. There's like high buildings, like really like in United States. And they are very surprised. So what is my point? The question is, were you not afraid to come, and did you have such a picture of Ukraine like it's a super poor country?
well, for me, I lived in Russia for a year and a half, but that's been like 15 years ago. So I mean, I kind of expected Ukraine to resemble the places that I had been in Russia. So for me, seeing the way that Ukraine is was not as much of a surprise for me, simply because I have the experience of having been in an Eastern European country before. But it might be a little bit different.
Both of us, but, so she was in Russia for a year and a half. I was in Argentina for a couple of years, and so traveling foreign for us, it's been a long while, but for us it's not terribly problematic. It is a long flight. It is a good ways to go, but I was impressed when we drove around a bit in Kiev yesterday. It seemed like a decent city. Seems like it's a decent place. Don't really have any complaints.
But Kiev is really big.
Kiev is really big. Odessa looks pretty good. Don't really have any. What can I say? Yeah, it's a little challenging if you don't know Ukrainian or Russian. Thankfully, she knows a little bit of Russian, so that helps out a little bit. I think the biggest challenge we've had so far.
Of course, for him, he had to kind of adjust his perspective, because he thought, well, she knows Russian, so that means we should be good.
We're all good.
But
like, she'll be able to do everything. Like, I expected, like, oh, you know, come in, like, okay, take, like. We'll
but the thing is he would say, well, what does that say? I said, I don't know, it's Ukrainian.
Actually, in Odessa, everybody's talking Russian.
Yeah, everybody speaks Russian, but trying to read signs and stuff is a little bit harder. Because it is so different, and so he had to adjust his perspective for that reason, because he thought, oh, Ukrainian, Russian, yeah, we should be good.
They're really familiar.
They are, yes.
You know, for us, it's an adventure, and you just take it. You should go with the flow. As long as you don't get, you know, as far as security goes, it's probably maybe one of the biggest things that you know, other Americans are probably worried about. security.
Yes.
Like, okay, am I going to get robbed? Am I going to, something going to happen to me when I'm overseas? And I haven't felt, putting out my spider tingly senses to, see like, okay, am I in a dangerous
Like Spider-Man,
situation?
Right.
And,
You have to be such careful in every country, actually.
Exactly, yeah.
but,
Particularly if you're not familiar with the language or the culture, which he's not at all. So
So, it's always just, being aware of your situations and surroundings and making sure that you're not putting yourself into a bad situation, but having traveled foreign before, I certainly don't feel
Like
it doesn't feel dangerous at all.
Yeah.
It feels very, very secure.